Guys and girls, when I opened up my CoinMarketCap account this morning, suffice to say I was pretty happy to see the markets were down because ultimately when the market's red, when there's blood in the streets, that is an indication for us to buy. Obviously when it's green, we hold, right? That's typically how it goes. But the projects I'm going to introduce to you today are very promising and I'm going to give you the reasons why, but most importantly, they are very close to where they were year to date, which is an important time for us because that was when Bitcoin was at its all-time low, at least in respect to the last few years. So again, these projects are some you very well will be aware of, but most importantly, they are doing strides or at least accomplishing roadmap events that I find is integral to their success, specifically in their respective field. So here we have it, POR, what I call proof of redness, okay? As we can see, Bitcoin's down 7% on the weekly, which is a good indication. What I like to tell people, if you guys are channel OGs, you know I've been saying this for a long time, when Bitcoin or the global market is down 5% or more, ideally around its 10%, I like to buy because ultimately that means the whole market is typically going to be down and at least we can begin looking into individual projects. Now, what are those projects, you might be asking? Well, these three. Now, I do talk about HBAR and Quant quite a bit on this channel, but trust me when I say it is for good reason and for those who have missed the recent updates with these two projects, but also, actually more importantly, Avalanche. I'm going to explain to you what is coming up next and why these prices are so optimal for us to begin buying. All right, so let's start off with Avalanche. Now, the price is just under $15, which in respect to where it has been and where it will go is actually a very good price because if we look back in 2021, well, the price was about $10 at the lowest possible point here. And the lowest possible point before that was way back in 2020 when it launched, of course. Now, if we zoom in, and it really annoys me that CoinMarketCap's gotten rid of the year-to-date button up here. The year-to-date price, again, when Bitcoin was at its kind of lowest price in the last few years, brought the whole market down with it, we saw about $11 AVAX token. So most of the cryptocurrencies, especially the other two we're talking about today, were about at least a 2x up from this point. And AVAX definitely is not a 2x up from this point, right? It's about $3 or $4 up. So very good time to buy, at least in my opinion. Most projects, actually, matter of fact, are up 3, 4, 5, 600% from this time. So yeah, in respects to AVAX, it's a good time for us to at least look into the project. If you aren't already familiar, you should definitely do some more research. Now, I know what you might be thinking, right? Kyle, this is a $5 billion market cap project. Why the hell are you introducing me to it or talking about it? Well, for starters, it's a great project for one, but also there are some massive updates that have happened in 2023 that have also pushed on from last year as well. So these guys are actually making strides in the institutional space, which before they kind of were. They had their toes in the water, but they weren't as primed to really take off in this sort of market space as they are now. And you can tell they really are trying to push themselves because, well, one of the updates does kind of insinuate that. So we'll get into that in just a second. Now, some of you might be thinking a bit about the circulating supply. The difference between the 332 million circulating supply and the total supply, the 428, is pretty much more or less the burnt tokens. They do burn their transactions. And there is a hard cap on the max supply. There will be no more than this ever in circulation. So that, of course, is a very, very good thing. Now, let's just take a quick little second to zoom out and have a look at some of the stats on Avalanche for those who don't know. Now, they do offer things called subnets, which is like their unique sharding approach, similar to parachains or shards on other networks. There's 44 connected blockchains. They have just under 1,300 validators, which is probably the reason why some of the important events that have happened, I'm going to touch on today, has actually probably boosted that number up a little bit. But of course, that is still a very good amount of validators for a young network. 258 million of these AVAX tokens are staked versus the current 332 currently in circulation. Now, again, they do burn their tokens, right? This is the burn chart. And as you can see, obviously, more transactions being processed, you're going to burn more transactions, right? So it's tapered off a bit now. It has been picking up recently, and I believe moving into all this hype, lots of people are, talking about, oh, the bull market started. It will pick up again, okay? So what are these critical updates? Well, to touch on one of the most important updates, at least I wanted to make an individual video about, but I'm going to touch on today, has to do with Alibaba. So back in December of last year, they partnered with Alibaba, which is like the world's third largest infrastructure as a service company. Well, they partnered with their cloud infrastructure wing, okay? So This is competing with, Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, and they pretty much enable the partnership, as you can see down here, to enable developers to easily spin up nodes on the Alibaba servers, which pretty much means they have access to the Asia market. They can diversify where their nodes are located, which obviously gives a better indication for throughput and things like that. So this is very important, right? And it's good to see that they're connected with Alibaba. Alibaba, again, is a very, very large company. It's in the Fortune 500 list. So they're a very big name. And this, though, is really where I want to push your attention. Alibaba Cloud, so Avalanche's partner, to deploy metaverses on the Avalanche blockchain. So let's touch on this a little bit more. The partnership will provide Alibaba's clients with a Launchpad Cloudverse that aims to help businesses customize, launch, and maintain their own metaverses on Avalanche's blockchain. So essentially, obviously Alibaba, as I said, is a huge company itself. They're enabling any business connecting, talking with them to go, okay, if you want to create a metaverse, if you want to create anything relating to this like Web3 space relating to the metaverse, well, you can go to Avalanche and we'll help you spin up your own sort of blockchain subnet for your metaverse. That is huge news in my opinion, because Alibaba is a big name. And of course, this unlocks the Asia market, right? Asia, you got Japan, South Korea, China. These markets obviously are very big on Web3, very big on gaming, very big on the metaverse. So this opens up probably one of the largest markets you can possibly find regarding the metaverse. Okay, big news. Again, AVAX is making moves, guys. So something else that happened in January of this year was AVAX partnered with Amazon Web Service to offer one-click node deployment. So just like they did with Alibaba, developers can now create nodes on the Amazon Web Service for Avalanche. This is big because you can essentially spin up a node and push that node to wherever you want in the world, as long as, of course, Amazon has a server there, which obviously, again, provides developers with more clarity regarding throughput and obviously just saves a whole heap of time, effort, and of course money when they're deploying their own applications or subnets. So this was a very big partner, because anyone that knows Amazon is they only deal with the big guys. They only deal with established companies that are proven to actually be working, right? So this is just a kind of like a stamp of approval in my opinion. So it's good to see that. And what do you kind of need to create a strong foundation for a layer one network, or at least any network? Well, you need the infrastructure, so you need the nodes. Obviously, the easier it is for developers to create the nodes, set up the nodes, the better. It's going to incentivize them to want to create more diverse applications. But of course, you need to focus on the developers themselves, right? You need to create an application-rich environment where they can come on, hopefully with very little friction, and do whatever they would like to, just let their imaginations run wild. And this is kind of where Avalanche has been struggling recently, because they haven't really tailored themselves not to applications or, Web3 based developers, but Web 2 institutions. And this is where they're really smashing it this year already, right? Avalanche introduces Evergreen, a different type of subnet to connect institutions on their blockchain, right? So on April 6th, Ava Labs introduced Avalanche Evergreen Subnets, a suite of institutional blockchain tooling and customizations designed to address company-specific requirements for financial services. Again, they were lacking here. They're making big strides now. It is really, really good to see. This pretty much allows Web 2 based companies or just developers to come on and just build whatever they really like to. AVAX, they have a really, really good sharding approach with these subnets. They're going to still have their regular type of subnet, but the Evergreen subnets are specifically designed for institutional demand, okay? So they'll be structured differently, offer more things, have this EVM native sort of environment for developers to instantly connect with EVM, things like that. So there's a lot going on there. And I'm really, really happy. Actually, they got a really big partner here recently. SK Planet, a leading data and technology company in South Korea. Again, huge, huge, huge for Web3, is building on Avalanche's subnet for tens of millions of users. So again, these guys are a leading data and technology company. This kind of came off the back of these Evergreen subnets. So yeah, guys, I'm really, really happy with what AVAX is doing. And to kind of push the final straw here, Securitize back in September of last year actually went to Avalanche to push their tokenized, one of their tokenized funds called the KKR, which is specifically for AVAX. Now, this fund is just under $500 billion. So I believe tokenization is going to be extremely important in the future. And yeah, it was just really good to see a large company like Securitize look at Avalanche to open up to the retail market with one of these funds. So lots happening on Avalanche. And this is why I'm telling you guys, right? The price is now, yes, like it's not ideal, $5 billion market cap. We aren't getting in at dirt cheap prices, but look at what's happening. Look at how they're churning recently. Look at the roadmap events. This is why I'm saying it's good to dollar cost average into projects when it's red, but you have to make sure, like it's always good to kind of pulse check on the project itself just to make sure they are living up to their roadmap or living up to their name and what they are trying to actually do. Now, let's touch on HBAR. You guys love HBAR. I love HBAR. We all love HBAR, right? Okay, so year to date, right? Or at least all. Now, we aren't as kind of low as back where we were in 2020, I'll admit. However, again, if we zoom in, the price down here was pretty much back at 2020's price, right? At about just under 4 cents, okay? 3.8 cents. And again, we're just under a 2x up. The fact that Hedera is not even a 2x up from lows that we saw, again, back in 2020, yeah, that indicates to me a good time dollar cost average. Again, we're just teetering on about 5 cents back and forth, okay? So, why am I bullish on Hedera? Well, I've made about 30 videos on Hedera going right into the tech, to the ecosystem, everything. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, but somewhat recently, they actually partnered with Dell Technologies, right? So Dell back in February joined the governing council. This is the governing council right here. You can see Dell has been a member since February. Now they only have X amount of spots remaining, what, about 10 spots. And when these spots are filled, the network will be more democratized and ultimately community nodes will be able to be spun up, fully permissionlessly, okay? So the roadmap kind of is beginning to step in this direction of a fully permissionless network, as we can see here in Q2 of this year. So in a few months, essentially, we'll see community nodes being able to spin up, of course, which is super bullish. And also later this year, Q3, we can see scheduled transactions will be coming, at least longer term scheduled transactions. Now, for those who know Hedera, this is a big point of difference. You can pretty much schedule a transaction for, at least when this comes out, at any point in the future. This is some really big stuff because developers are the people that you need to incentivize because they create the applications that therefore bring in the users, which brings in the demand. Of course, institutional demand as well, right? And then as we can see here, towards the end of Q3, towards the end of this year, the community nodes will be further upgraded, so improved onboarding, monitoring, and recovery. Big stuff, guys. Now, to put something in perspective, shout out to Dan. He posted this a few months ago now, but this to give you some perspective on the daily transactions HBAR is pushing. Look at this. Over double the next largest being Solana, and Solana's, they aren't all transactions, but I don't want to get into that, right? Essentially, they're crushing the competition. 48 million daily transactions. Again, I've got so much more to go into on Hedera. There's a big rabbit hole there, but I've made videos and all this sort of stuff. But let me know if you guys want to see more info on HBAR. But this is one that I wanted to really get into, Quant, because Quant's price right now being $106, right? I've always said to people, if you can get into Quant under $100, that is golden prices. And I know if we hit all, well, let's just go back to the start of the year. It was kind of cheaper, right? So $110, yeah, but if we come back to, mid last year, it was significantly cheaper, half the price, right? And to that I say yes, respectable. More people are starting to catch on to Quant Network now, so it'll be hard for it to find the same price again. I definitely think it'll push under $100 because I'm one of them people believing in a black swan event coming up soon. So, I definitely think the prices will go lower on all cryptocurrencies, but this is still a good time to buy. Guys, I've made a recent prediction on Quant Network, and I believe it'll go anywhere between about $3,000 to $10,000 the next bull run. Why? Well, because they've got this. And what is this, right? Well, Quant recently put out a tweet, and this is the only info we currently have on this subject, where Gilbert, the founder and CEO of Quant Network, was on a private one-on-one panel with this guy, Tom Mutton, who is pretty much leading the CBDC implementation for the UK, for England, right? And they went on a private panel because Quant has been working with the Bank of England, more specifically with the Bank of International Settlements, who is pretty much like a central bank of all central banks, about like 65 different central banks, called Project Rosalind. They're working on this thing where they're looking at implementing a CBDC or retail CBDC into the UK economy. And they're working closely with Quant Network as the solution to bring this to fruition, which means we are talking trillions of dollars every single year. We're talking billions of transactions a month, meaning that's going to be absorbed by the Quant token, therefore pushing the price of the Quant token up. Now, I've made a video on this. You guys can go ahead and watch it, giving you the full breakdown. But essentially, if this comes to fruition, which I strongly do believe, and not just hopium, I do believe it'll come to fruition, it's going to be very big stuff for Quant's price. Again, you probably will never see Quant around the same sort of price ever again. And they are doing more than just working with CBDCs. These guys are working with, as you can see down here, any sort of network that is pretty much online. It can be privacy networks. It can be enterprise grade networks. It can be any social media application relating to has an API. It can be anything, right? So Quant is one of those projects. It's my second largest holding, and I really do believe in its future. I'm not just saying that to shill you my bags. I don't need to. But yeah, suffice to say the price is very, very cheap right now. And the news that they're working with the Bank of England, essentially, more importantly, the Bank of International Settlements, which could mean that their overledger might actually be implemented in 65 other central banks or economies, is phenomenal. And this is just CBDC implementation. This isn't even accounting for other networks. So all I'm trying to say, guys, is when you are looking to dollar cost average, it is integral you find that Bitcoin or the global market is down at a certain percentage on the weekly. Don't look daily, don't look on the hourly, weekly. Again, my indicator is 5 to 10% down. And then I begin to look into the projects that are actually making moves and strides in the space. We aren't looking for meme coins. We aren't looking for projects that might die on a whim. We are looking for projects connecting with some of the world's largest companies or nations for Quant Network, right? So this is all happening with these projects. I love them to bits. I will continue buying. And ultimately, guys, I really hope that you have taken on board not just the projects from today's video, but the understanding of what you have to look at when you're actually dollar cost averaging itself. All right. Thanks so much for watching all. This was not financial advice at all. I'm just sharing my knowledge with you. And ultimately, I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.